हेलो एवरीवन, गुड इवनिंग। कैसे हैं आप सभी? गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन, कैसे हैं आप सभी? हेलो एवरीवन, गुड इवनिंग। कैसे हैं आप सभी? गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन, कैसे हैं आप सभी? अगर आप मुझे प्रॉपर्ली सुन पा रहे हैं, देख पा रहे हैं, तो प्लीज एक बार मुझे कमेंट करके कंफर्म कर दीजिएगा कि आप मुझे प्रॉपर्ली सुन पा रहे हैं, देख पा रहे हैं। और हम आज का बहुत ही स्पेशल एपिसोड, फर्स्ट टाइम ऐसा हो रहा है कि हम लाइव में एक लाइव गेस्ट के साथ बात करने वाले हैं। तो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है, बहुत डिटेल में होने वाला है डिस्कशन। आप सभी के क्वेश्चंस को भी हम कवर करने वाले हैं। सबसे पहले मैं आपको आज के हमारे गेस्ट से मिलवा देता हूं। ही इज हरी श्याम सुंदर सर, हु इज डायरेक्टर एंड फंड मैनेजर एट नवी म्यूचुअल फंड्स। हरी सर, गुड इवनिंग, कैसे हैं? वेलकम टू इन्वेस्ट आज फॉर कल फैमिली। हरी सर, प्लीज अनम्यूट कीजिए, आपका म्यूट हो रखा है।
Okay, that is one of the things about going live. I think.
इट्स
So
पार्ट
thank
ऑफ
you
द
for
गेम
having
सर।
me. Thank you for having me. It is good to be here, and good to speak to all your listeners as well. Good evening to everyone.
सर, वी आर ऑल्सो वेरी एक्साइटेड टू हैव यू। सर, पहला क्वेश्चन। सर, आपको मार्केट में काम करते हुए मोर देन 15 ईयर्स हो चुका है। इवन फंड मैनेजिंग में एक बहुत सफिशिएंट टाइम हो चुका है। आप इवन एज बिजनेस एनालिस्ट काम करते थे, फिर आपने फ्रैंकलिन में वन ऑफ द मोस्ट सक्सेसफुल फंड्स को मैनेज किया। अब आप नवी म्यूचुअल फंड में काम कर रहे हैं। इस कंप्लीट एक्सपीरियंस में आपके अकॉर्डिंग कुछ ऐसे पॉइंट्स जो इन्वेस्टर्स को हमेशा ध्यान रखने चाहिए, स्पेशली आज के मार्केट को ध्यान में रखते हुए?
Right. So I think the thing about markets जो है ना, I think जितना भी सीखो उतना कम. I think that is the biggest lesson for me. There is whatever I've learned, I feel that there is always less. That's always less. Markets are a great teacher. I mean, बहुत सीखने को मिलता है, बहुत सीखना बाकी है, एंड कभी-कभी डंडे भी बढ़ जाते हैं. आई थिंक इट इज that's the way you end up learning the best, I think. The highs are high and the lows can be very low as well. So I think that is one of the things which I thought. I think मेरे हिसाब से what I've learned is that मार्केट में अल्फा जनरेट करने के लिए, अल्फा जो कहते हैं कि मार्केट रिटर्न जो देती है उससे ऊपर रिटर्न बनाने के लिए आपको दो चीज करना चाहिए. एक जो है, आपको डिफरेंटली सोचना पड़ेगा मार्केट से. अगर मार्केट की तरह सोचोगे तो मार्केट का रिटर्न नहीं मिलेगा. तो उससे ज्यादा मिलने के लिए आपको अलग से सोचना पड़ेगा. एंड दूसरी बात जो है, जब आप अलग सोचते हो, इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू टू बी करेक्ट. अगर आप अलग सोचते हो एंड यू आर रॉन्ग, देन तो मार्केट को तो ऑलरेडी न्यू दैट व्हाट यू आर डूइंग इज रॉन्ग. आप काफी यू लुक अ बिट सिली बाय मेकिंग द बाय ट्राइंग टू थिंक डिफरेंटली एट दैट पॉइंट. सो थिंक डिफरेंटली and be correct when you're thinking, and both are very difficult to do. And I think it is people who spend a lot of time doing this, researching the companies a lot, understanding how the markets work with the economy. It requires a full lot of involvement in the markets to be able to generate that alpha. And so that is what I have learned. And I think thinking differently and thinking correctly, I think that is that is what I've pointed for our listeners.
सर, और आपकी कंप्लीट 15 सालों की जर्नी किस तरीके से मोल्ड हुई है, किस तरीके की रही है?
सो माइन इज स्लाइटली डिफरेंट जर्नी. थोड़ा अलग हुआ है मेरे साथ. तो पहले मैं एक ऑयल एंड गैस कंपनी में थोड़े टाइम के लिए काम कर रहा था. उसके बाद बट व्हाट आई लव डूइंग वाज आई एंजॉयड understanding companies, understanding businesses, what drives profitability, which environments do they do well, in which environments do they do badly, what will give them higher return on capital, what are the reasons why it'll do well in certain, what is the competition doing. So understanding all these things, what drove me. I enjoyed doing that, and that is why I joined Franklin Templeton, to be able to dive deeper into this. So I started off with oil and gas sector, then I do looked at other sectors, and then after looking at individual sectors, जोड़ दिया मैंने portfolio manager बन के. How do you put them all together and make those combination of companies do well together? So I think that is how the that's what my journey has been about.
चलिए सर, तो अब हमारे मेन टॉपिक के ऊपर चलते हैं धीरे धीरे और उसके बारे में डिस्कशन करना स्टार्ट करते हैं। इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट करना। देखिए, इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में सर हम जब भी इन्वेस्टमेंट की बात करते हैं, पहला क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि क्या एक्चुअली में कोई हमारे लिए डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट है भी, या फिर हम सिर्फ ये ऊपर से बातें कर रहे हैं। तो सर, क्या कुछ हमारे पास डेटा पॉइंट है, किस तरीके से हम प्रूव कर सकते हैं कि डाइवर्सिफिकेशन होता है?
Right. So for that, I'll ask for the slide, which I have put some data together to show exactly how this is played out. Now, I think,
एब्सोल्युटली सर।
uh, yeah. So the next one, yes, yeah. So I think this is what I'm referring to. इसमें we speak about international diversification. पहली बात जो है ये जो हम सोचते हैं कि होम कंट्री बायस, थोड़ा बात करते हैं उसके बारे में.
बिल्कुल ठीक।
Every investor likes to invest in their own country. अगर जर्मनी
बिल्कुल।
में कोई रहते हैं तो फिर ज्यादा पैसा वही उसी मार्केट में डालते हैं. अच्छा हो बुरा हो, यूरोपियन स्टॉक मार्केट्स आर नॉट परफॉर्मेंट, फर्क नहीं पड़ता, वो वही पे डालते हैं ज्यादा पैसा. दैट इज कॉल्ड होम कंट्री बायस. And India also, all of us are subject to this. All of us know what is happening in India. वो familiarity है. वो हम जानते हैं कि इंडिया में exactly क्या हो रहा है. And we are staying here for a reason कि we are positive about our country. We
और
have
हमारे कंफर्ट जोन भी आ जाता है यहाँ पे।
correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Comfort zone as in we know what is happening. वो control रहता है. कि, कुछ भी बुरा हुआ तो भी we'll know that हो तो रहा है. नहीं तो कोई पुराने I mean कोई दूसरे देश में क्या हो रहा है क्या पता. That is always
हम्म।
the thinking, right? But the thing is that it is better to look by diversifying. See, I'll take one example. If you look at this right hand side की जो table जो है, इसमें
हम्म।
हाँ, so you look at that 2010 to 2015 period. So in India, we know that what kind of a period that was. That was a difficult time for our country in terms of the economy. Inflation was slightly higher. Economic growth was slightly weak. Oil
हम्म।
prices went up very high. And overall, जो है investment cycle थोड़ी, I mean, it went into a bit of a down. At that time, in the other part of the world, there was something else happening, where new businesses were coming up. Alphabet was being created. Apple was doing very well. Amazon was
हम्म।
growing. So all those things meant that S&P 500 is doing very well. Then if you come to the next 3 years, then Indian market, we saw the bull market started to take off in India, and maybe S&P 500 didn't do as well. And then in the
हम्म।
last 3 years, again, फिर से it has become that S&P 500 has done a bit better. So it is like at every stage you're having the best of both worlds if you're investing in both of them together. So I think that is one thing on the returns. So that this is how international diversification जो है, I think it helps an investor if their home country suffers in decline. So I'll just add one more point on this. So
बिल्कुल।
एक बात जो है, हम इक्विटीज की बात कर रहे हैं. Equities as an asset class itself, which across the world you will have, साथ में चलेंगे. The equities, all of them go up together sometimes, all of them come down sometimes. And that is different from a different asset class. So real estate will move in its own, अपनी धुन में चले गया. ये gold will move in its own way. Debt will move in its own way. But within these equity markets, each of the markets will have their own differences. So the Indian market will do something else, US market may do something else, but within that, the overall equities will do something which is different from that of the gold. So I'm saying that within equities itself, you should look to have some Indian, some US, and some of maybe the rest of the world also. That is another way to look at it.
सर, लेकिन इसमें क्या होता है, जैसे हम यूएस मार्केट को ट्रैक करते हैं, हमें लगता है कि अगर यूएस फ्यूचर्स डाउन है तो इंडियन मार्केट भी डाउन होगा, यूएस फ्यूचर्स अप है तो इंडियन मार्केट भी पॉजिटिव हो जाएगा। जब हम डेली में एक्चुअली में मार्केट को देखते हैं तो हमें लगता है कि हम बहुत ज्यादा यूएस मार्केट से गाइडेड है। अगर हम
Correct.
गाइडेड है तो क्या एक्चुअली वहां पे कोई बीटा होता भी है, डिफरेंशिएशन होता भी है या नहीं?
करेक्ट. आई थिंक ऑन अ डे टू डे बेसिस डेफिनेटली व्हाट यू सेइंग इज राइट. हम लोग काफी ट्रैक करते हैं उसके बारे में. आई थिंक इट इज समथिंग which definitely there is some kind of correlation. So if you look at the slide which is there below, I put together like two different kind of portfolios. एक जो आप सिर्फ निफ्टी 50 में डाल रहे हो पैसा, और दूसरा जो आप अगर आप निफ्टी 50 और वीटीआई इज द ब्रॉडेस्ट मार्केट इंडेक्स फॉर यूएस, अगर आप उसमें 50-50 करके डालोगे, what this shows is that this shows a volatility. Volatility means how much, कितना उतार चढ़ाव होता है इस अपने पोर्टफोलियो में. तो the question here is that because in the end we are all human, अगर ज्यादा volatility हो जाती है तो फिर थोड़ा डर जाता है and you get a bit worried about that. This shows that if you combine the two, दोनों को साथ में मिलाओगे, तो फिर द वॉलिटिलिटी बिकम्स अ बिट लेस आल्सो. हमने रिटर्न्स की बात तो किया है कि द रिटर्न्स यू गेट द बेस्ट ऑफ बोथ वर्ल्ड्स. The volatility also is less, so you don't have to worry that it's moving too much. So that is the other benefit. So जब हम बीटा की बात करें, जब हम correlation की बात कर रहे हैं, the reason this happens is that the correlation is not perfect. दोनों एग्जैक्टली ओवर टाइम जो है एग्जैक्टली साथ में नहीं चलते. इट इज on a day-to-day basis we can get lost in what is happening, but I think
हम्म
if you step back and look at these longer term periods, if you look at 1 year 3 year across time periods, वो जोड़ने से जो बेनिफिट मिल जाता है, आई थिंक दैट इज समथिंग विच इज वेरी पावरफुल फॉर एवरी इन्वेस्टर. एंड योर portfolios become stronger by looking at a combination of your country as well as other countries in your portfolio. So that is the reason I think that there is a benefit to it definitely over time.
सो मतलब हमारे पोर्टफोलियो की वॉलिटिलिटी कम हो जाती है अगर हम दोनों के पोर्टफोलियो को अगर 50-50 मिला देते हैं. दिस इज व्हाट द सेकंड पार्ट इज शोइंग अस, राइट?
Correct. Yes. Yes. So that is so the first one on the top right is showing that the returns vary. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, as you said, that we wake up in the morning, put on and immediately check कि Nasdaq में क्या हुआ overnight, S&P में क्या हुआ overnight, and उससे फिर देखते हैं कि SGX Nifty में क्या हो रहा है. Is it taking cues from there? उससे then we look at, we'll start thinking about ये flows कैसे होंगे, domestic के flows कैसे हो सकते हैं, FIS के flows कैसे हो सकते हैं. That is very on a day-to-day basis. But the real money for your portfolio, for your planning, is made over the longer periods of time. And like we said, 2010 to 15, we were doing the same things, but at the end of the 5 years, our economy hadn't moved by as much, right? So the over the period, longer periods of time, when you look at it, it is very different. Picture बदल जाता है over a period of time. But on a day-to-day basis, definitely it feels like हम जो US market कर रही है, हम भी कर रही है. US market is suffering 2%, 3% decline, so India also falls that day. So you feel like it's not nothing is there's no benefit of it, but over time definitely वो benefit तो हो जाता है, I think.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट सर. इसमें क्या है, अभी मेरे पास भी दिमाग में बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन चल रहे हैं. जैसे इवन आपने वीटीआई मेंशन किया, तो इसके रिलेटेड भी क्वेश्चन है. पर जैसा हमने डिस्कस किया था कि हम एक फंड का एग्जांपल लेते हुए सारी चीजें समझते, फिर टुवर्ड्स द एंड हमारे सभी व्यूअर्स के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करेंगे. तो सर
Sure.
सबसे पहले जिस फंड के हम समझ सकते हैं, ये एक एनएफओ है, पर एट द सेम टाइम इट इज एन ईटीएफ. तो सर
Yes.
ईटीएफ क्या होता है, वहां से स्टार्ट कीजिएगा. इस फंड के बारे में बेसिक एक एटलीस्ट एक ग्राउंड वर्क तैयार कीजिए ना सर.
Sure. So the fund which we are taking an example to discuss this international diversification, this is called the Navi US Total Stock Market Fund of Fund. What this is doing is that it is looking to invest into what is called the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. As you said, it is investing into an ETF. So ETF is an exchange traded fund. It is like an index fund. It is a different form of an index fund, I would say. Exchange traded funds होते हैं, they are traded on the. So index fund, if you look at normal mutual funds होती है, if you put your money in the middle of the day, वो end के NAV जो है वो वही मिलता है. Exchange traded funds जो होते हैं, they trade on the stock markets live when the markets are open. They trade on the stock markets as it is as the markets are live. So the thing about exchange traded funds is that it is important to have a lot of liquidity. It is important for it to have a lot of participation in it, and it should have a very low tracking error. Okay, the tracking error is the difference between how the index moves underlying and how uh, the exchange traded fund itself moves. So I think that is another
Hmm.
very important parameter to look at. So what we are doing, what Navi is doing, is that we are investing into the Vanguard total stock market ETF. Now,
मतलब वैनगार्ड का सबसे पहले।
हाँ सर, सो वैनगार्ड जो है इट इज अ लेजेंड इन द पैसिव फंड्स. अगर इंडेक्स फंड्स की बात करेंगे तो उसका जन्म हुआ था 1976 में.
हम्म।
उनका फाउंडर जो थे उनका नाम था जॉन बोगल. जॉन बोगल थे जो 1951 में उन्होंने एक थीसिस किया था. थीसिस फॉर गेटिंग अ पीएचडी. उनके लिए उनका जो थीसिस था वो इंडेक्स फंड्स के ऊपर थे. एंड ही वाज एंड वो उस थीसिस में ही व्हाट ही सेड इज दैट मार्केट जो है मार्केट रिटर्न देती है.
हम्म।
अगर आप इन्वेस्टर हो उसमें तो आपको रिटर्न मिलती है मार्केट रिटर्न माइनस एक्सपेंसेस. तो म्यूचुअल फंड्स को ज्यादा इन्वेस्टर को रिटर्न देने के लिए अपना एक्सपेंसेस कम रखना चाहिए और इंडेक्स फंड्स ऑफर करना चाहिए.
हम्म।
Because that is what the overall index, that's what the overall market gives. So that is his theory, and using that 1976 में he founded the first index fund. तब उनके जो एसेट्स अंडर मैनेजमेंट थे वो दैट वाज 1.8 बिलियन डॉलर्स
हम्म।
1976 में. आज के रेट में वैनगार्ड इज द सेकंड लार्जेस्ट एसेट मैनेजर इन द वर्ल्ड. 7.2 ट्रिलियन डॉलर्स ऑफ ए ईयर.
हम्म। हम्म।
हमारी स्टॉक मार्केट की जो मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन है वो अबाउट 3.6 ट्रिलियन डॉलर की है. तो वैनगार्ड अकेले जो है इट इज ऑलमोस्ट डबल दैट ऑफ आर होल स्टॉक मार्केट
होल
इटसेल्फ.
मार्केट।
करेक्ट.
हम्म।
उसमें से देयर इज दिस वन फंड ऑफ दिस called the Vanguard Total Stock Market Fund, which is a series of funds. They have उनके पास ETF है, ये एक्सचेंज ट्रेडेड ये इंडेक्स फंड भी है. बट पूरे
हम्म।
जो है वो Vanguard Total Stock Market सीरीज ऑफ फंड्स जो है दैट इज 1.4 ट्रिलियन डॉलर्स.
हम्म।
That shows the popularity of that fund in US. It is like आपको अगर यूएस मार्केट के बारे में सोचना है तो फिर आप बस ये डाल दो. I mean, इसमें इसमें पैसा डाल दो. I mean, it has become almost a default for many Americans. Uh, अभी तक यहाँ पे दिस इज नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर इंडियंस टू इन्वेस्ट, एंड वी आर ब्रिंगिंग
हम्म।
इट इन अ वेरी सिंपल वे, which is that आप सिर्फ you can, like a normal mutual fund, you can just put your money into this and we'll invest it into the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. And that is benchmarked based on the CRSP US Total Market Index. So the name itself says the product itself. So total stock market. इसमें 4,100 stocks है. 4,100 stocks एक fund में. That
हम्म।
is as complete as it gets. So one stop shop, I say, that is what this particular product is, and that is what we are looking to invest in. So when we are thinking about investing, as you've been speaking, US stock markets, if you want to put money, then you want something which is, I don't want to think कि tech अच्छा करने वाला है, ये medical अच्छा करने वाला है. तो what we don't want to think about those things. We just say बस US markets में पैसा डालना है. And this is your
हम्म।
one-stop shop. That is the thought of Vanguard Total Stock Market.
सो मतलब ये बिल्कुल आपको जितने भी आप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन सोच सकते हो पूरा डाइवर्सिफाई आपको ये एक फंड करके देता है यूएस मार्केट्स के लिए।
Correct. 4,100 stocks. That is 100%, almost 100% of the investable universe जो है वो उसमें कवर हो जाती है.
सर लेकिन जब हम इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं स्पेशली यूएस में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं एक रूपी कॉस्ट की हमेशा एक पॉइंट आता है कि हमें उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा। तो
Correct.
उस पर भी लाइट डालिए ना कि हमारे पे रूपी कॉस्ट क्या पॉजिटिव होगा नेगेटिव होगा क्या एक्सपेक्टेशन है आने वाले समय में।
Correct. So most of our expenses, if you look at it, have some element of dollar in it. If you look
एब्सोल्युटली।
around you, if you look around you, पेट्रोल का खर्चा जो है that is
हम्म।
dollar denominated. Steel
हम्म।
also, lot of it is, sometimes it is dollar denominated, dollar per ton पे देखते हैं. Many of the
हम्म।
international lot of the एग्रीकल्चर कमोडिटीज जो है उनका भी भाव डॉलर में डिनोमिनेट हो जाता है.
हम्म.
तो a lot of the costs which you have today are, whether you know it or not, there is some element of dollar in it. So for your money to do work to keep up, so when the dollar becomes more expensive, and
हम्म.
it has become in the last, if you look at last 10 years, it has gone from about 49 to 75. It has gone that much. So,
हम्म.
during that period of time, your life has become with more expenses. The expenses have definitely gone up because of that dollar going up. And has your
हम्म.
money done that as well?
हम्म.
If you put money into your dollar assets, then your money works also in a dollar basis. So that is the way to
हम्म.
think about it. So for taking, for example, this fund itself, you put if you invest in this fund, we will put it into a dollar, so it stays in dollars. Then whatever work the stock markets do, that is the businesses there generate their own returns and change our the way we live our lives in their own way. Uh, that dollar is still in that basis. So if the dollar becomes more expensive, then when you look to sell it, at that time you get the current rate of the dollar. So if it has become more expensive, then you get the benefit of that. And that is what has happened in the last 10 years. So that is another reason to think about it. As you said, a lot of your costs are in dollars. So is there is your money is also being placed in dollars, so that as that if that becomes more expensive, then you're covered on that also.
सर इसको थोड़ा सा और एक्सप्लेन कीजिए ना. आई थिंक मुझे कुछ क्वेश्चंस भी मिल रहे हैं इसके अराउंड. मतलब आप ये कह रही कि अगर रुपी डेप्रिशिएट होता है, डॉलर इंक्रीज होता है, तो हमें इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट करने में एक डाइवर्सिफिकेशन का बेनिफिट मिलता है बिकॉज हम इंडिया में एक्सपेंस भी डॉलर पे कर रहे हैं.
Correct. Correct. That is exactly the way to look at it. We are investing in dollars. Your money will stay in dollars till the time you want to sell that unit of index fund which you have.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट. और सर मैं भी हमेशा ही बोलता हूं, अगर कोई एक ऐसी इकोनॉमी है जिसके बारे में आपको पता नहीं है एंड यू आर अ नो नथिंग इन्वेस्टर फॉर दैट इकोनॉमी या फिर उस एसेट क्लास की है, वहां पे आपको हमेशा इंडेक्स फंड या फिर इस टाइप के ईटीएफ्स को यूज करना चाहिए क्योंकि वहां पे आप कंफर्टेबली प्लेस हो जाते हैं. इस
Correct.
पर्टिकुलर फंड में कौन सा इन्वेस्टर्स प्लान कर सकता है? क्या एसआईपी प्लान हो सकती है? क्या एक्सपेंस रेशियोज होते हैं? फाइनल पॉइंट्स क्या है इस कंप्लीट फंड से रिलेटेड? सो इससे पहले देखिए, इस कंप्लीट डिस्कशन के बाद हम आपके क्यूएनए लेने वाले हैं, तो इस वीडियो को अभी से लाइक करते जाइएगा. जैसे ही हमारे लाइक एटलीस्ट 1000+ हो जाते हैं, हमारा क्यूएनए स्टार्ट हो जाएगा और क्यूएनए बहुत डिटेल में होने वाला है. पहले हम इस फंड को कंप्लीट क्लोज करते हैं. सर, ओवर टू यू.
Right. So I think firstly, as you said, there is a benefit. There is a benefit to having an exposure in other markets. So if you think about another way to think about it is that U.S. market. If you look at the overall world, okay, and that, you say that what is the total world market cap? Usme se, if you look at the American markets, that is 43% of the total
हम्म.
world market capitalization. India is 2 to 3%. So when we are investing in the Indian markets, it is good. We should have investments, a lot of it in our local currency, but we are missing on 97% of what is happening in the world. You invest in American markets, that covers 43% of the rest of the world. So American markets are a good investment to have in your portfolio. So that is the first thing I will say. Second is that when you're looking at what do you want to invest in, what kind of a fund would you want? Just again, this is just comprehensive in that sense. It is something which is very comprehensive, and the correct way to invest in it will be an SIP also. That is definitely, I think, something which you've made continuously as a point, and that is available here. You can easily plan
इंटरेस्टिंग.
to invest in this steadily. There is that option is there. And the third point is the expense ratio जो हम बात कर रहे हैं. See, there's one option nowadays. If Indian investors want to invest directly in stocks, it is possible. There are many brokerages which offer that option. You can go and directly invest in stocks, but there are a lot of costs to that in terms of redemption, in terms of your managing of the currency, in terms of a lot of these little aspects. There's a lot of costs involved in those. What we are offering is at just 6 basis points, 0.06%. This is the lowest that is completely there, and this is
Absolutely.
no funds come at this kind of a rate. It is virtually, I mean, this is as low as you can get in terms of trying to invest in the American markets. Uh, and this is because if you look at what Vanguard is, Vanguard itself spoke about this. Their structure is that they want to give the lowest cost to the investors. And that is just something which we are also passing on to our investors. So at 0.06%, it is a very ultra low, and you're not thinking about, how expensive it is at all. This is the cheapest option you have to invest, lowest cost option you have to invest in the US stock markets. And that's why I would just suggest that simple, low cost, comprehensive एंड टू एंड सोल्यूशन जो है दिस इज द प्रोडक्ट विच यू शुड लुक फॉर
एब्सोल्युटली सर एनी अदर पॉइंट रिगार्डिंग दिस प्रोडक्ट व्हिच यू वांट टू कवर स्पेशली अगर कुछ ऐसा पॉइंट जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग में हमारी हेल्प करे और अभी तक हमने मिस कर रखा हो
Right. So I think one thing which I will say about this also is that um, one interesting story I'll say about how comprehensive it is. Now, one comparison जो आता है वो S&P 500 के साथ आता है. S&P 500 के कई products हैं and it is also a large index. So why don't we just invest in that? So one example I'll give about how this helps you capture the next big winner also. So what happened is that in Tesla, everybody knows Tesla now, but in 2011 it was a much smaller company, and that time it was included in this index, the CRSP, VTI की जो CRSP total market जो है, it was included in the index. It was not a part of the S&P 500 index till 2020. So the benefit of what happened for Tesla in terms of growth, that is that was available because this was able to pick it up from a micro cap stage almost, or not a small cap stage, till it became now a mega cap. It is among the top companies in the world now. Another similar example happened with a company called Moderna, which is known for the vaccines which it has made during a COVID period. It was much smaller. It was not a part of many of these indexes. But by owning this, by owning this index, it was already a part of that. Moderna was a part of it and gave that extra boost as it became much bigger. So that is another aspect, as I'd say. It covers even the next the mega winner which you might have as it becomes much bigger.
सर नाउ आपके लिए स्पेशली इंटरनेशनल मार्केट के रिलेटेड कुछ क्वेश्चन है मैं उन्हें कवर करना स्टार्ट करता हूं सर पहला
Sure.
क्वेश्चन ये है कि अभी यूएस मार्केट में टेपरिंग हो सकती है सो उसका आप यूएस मार्केट में कितना इंपैक्ट देख रहे हैं और आपका क्या व्यू है इस कंप्लीट टेपरिंग की सिचुएशन को लेते हुए
That's a very topical question. I think it is a concern for many people looking at the US market currently. So I would look at it in a couple of ways. One is that interest rates need to be normalized. वहाँ की जो inflation है, that is picked up. So definitely, I think there is this normalization is going to happen. But I will also look at it in a slightly different way. That one of the reasons why there's inflation there is that there is a lot of demand. If you look at unemployment statistics there, it is at all-time low. If you look at wages, that is going up very sharply. The reason for that is the consumers are becoming stronger. The home building is picking up very sharply there. The amount of demand which is there, and that is from very good customers. Very good. Last time, 2005, the demand was very strong, but that was a different kind of a customer who was buying it. This is a very good customer who's looking to buy houses. So I'm saying that it looks like the economy on a broad base is starting to pick up in US. So that strength also cannot be missed out. But what is happening is that in this interest rate moving up, there will be some shakeout. वो जो during low interest rates, there were these kind of stocks जो पैसा नहीं बना रही थी, and it was the stock market was just inflating the prices with the promise that कभी ना कभी तो पैसा बना ही लेंगे. So that those kind of stocks are in trouble, and we have seen that already happen. So many of the many names which have fallen like 60 to 80% already, and so I think that in terms of the heavy or the some of these tech names which are particularly which are not profitable, those are in trouble. Those have been in trouble, and they may continue to be in trouble for some time. But
Hmm.
if the economy picks up, then you will have a different kind of company doing well. So small caps, mid caps, those kind of which typically depend on the broader economy doing well, like home builders, as you said, that's one example. If they do well, then there'll be a different kind of a economy which is doing well. Which is my earlier point that I don't want to be sitting and wondering about कौन सा
Hmm.
company
Hmm.
अच्छा कर रही है, कौन सा अच्छा is tech going to do well, is it not going to do well? I think that
Hmm.
is those are
Hmm.
questions I don't want to be worried about, and that is what. So that is why you should look at a broad-based kind of a fund, which will help
Hmm.
you tide over these times, which will be volatile. I agree that there will be some volatility, but this is the
Hmm.
time when you should look at a very broad-based kind of an offering.
अ, स- आपके काफी सारे क्वेश्चन फंड से रिलेटेड आ रहे हैं, तो सारे इंपॉर्टेंट लिंक्स मैंने डिस्क्रिप्शन में लगा दिए हैं। साथ ही साथ
Sure.
अगर अभी तक आपने लाइक नहीं किया है तो लाइक कर दीजिएगा, ताकि हमें पता चल जाए कि आप इस कंप्लीट डिस्कशन का पार्ट बने हुए हैं। सर, क्वेश्चन ये है कि एग्जिट लोड किस तरीके से चार्ज होता है फंड ऑफ फंड में जब हम इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, टैक्सेस कैसे होते हैं, उसके रिलेटेड क्लैरिटी क्या होगी?
Right. So इसमें there's no exit load. There's no exit load. There's no entry load. Taxes, there is a taxation, and this is for all international funds. It is based on what it's like what the debt taxation is. So if you invest beyond 3 years, longer than 3 year time period, which I would highly recommend because this is equity in the end, you should look at the
Absolutely.
long term, not just the 3 year. You should look at 10 years horizon, 5, 10 years horizon. You should look at when you're looking at investing in equities. So if you look at beyond 3 years, then you get then any gains are taxed at 20% with the benefit of indexation. So that is a taxation bit. And in terms of the expenses, expense ratio, we said it's 6.06% in terms of our expense ratio. And yeah.
सर, इसमें अगला क्वेश्चन ये आ रहा है कि आईटी में हमने बात करी है कि आईटी, जैसे स्पेशली नास्डेक भी यूएस मार्केट में काफी करेक्ट हो रहा है, इंडियन मार्केट में भी आईटी एज अ सेगमेंट में हमने करेक्शन देखा है। तो नास्डेक पे और आईटी सेगमेंट में आपका क्या आउटलुक है गोइंग फॉरवर्ड?
राइट। आईटी इंडिया में
आईटी इंडिया
या
में, इवन आईटी यूएस में, जैसे कि नास्डेक में इन्वेस्टमेंट हो गया, तो क्या हम नास्डेक जैसे फंड में इन्वेस्ट करने का प्लान करना चाहिए, या क्या ओपिनियन है?
सी आई थिंक the what the pandemic has shown us is that tech has almost saved the world. I think
हम्म।
in many ways, our lockdown and working from home, ये सब जो हमने किया है वो टेक के बिना तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो पाता. And
हम्म।
every company now has accelerated their shift towards cloud, towards looking at ways to work from home. It's cloud is one aspect, then also security. How do you ensure that a full workforce is working from home, from remote places, but your customers don't suffer as a result of that? How to ensure that the businesses are kept running 24 hours, but from different people from different working in different places. So I think that has just been accelerated by the pandemic. I am very optimistic on the IT demand. I think IT demand is definitely something which is has picked up strongly. It's a multi-year cycle which is playing out. There has been a correction, of course, because I think the prices have gone up a bit too fast. But underlying, I think as the demand keeps coming through, there is still a positive outlook. On the Nasdaq, I will say this. I'll go back to what I said earlier. There are some companies which are the profitable, the companies which are like an Amazon, which is there, which are not going anywhere. It is
हम्म।
strong. AWS is a mammoth now. Such a big cash generator for it. Plus, of course, its core e-commerce business also is something which is staying strong with it. So I think some of these are not going away. They are here to stay. It is the ones
हम्म।
which were inflated without underlying profits which are the ones which
हम्म।
will go away. So थोड़ा shakeout हो जाएगा. There definitely will be a shakeout, and that is hitting Nasdaq a bit more because it had a few of those components that some of those, I think like Zoom, Peloton, some of those kind of names which had um, further out profitability, those will get hit. But the ones which have strength will stay, will become stronger. In fact, maybe.
बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। और वहां पे जिनमें अभी थोड़ा सा करेक्शन ज्यादा आ रहा है, उनमें रैली भी इतनी ही ज्यादा आई थी। जब मार्केट में
Correct.
रैली आ रही थी, दे वर परफॉर्मिंग आल्सो रियली वेल। सो इतना तो हमें सहना पड़ेगा। सर,
Correct.
एक थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन है। चाहे वो इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट करना हो, चाहे यूएस में इन्वेस्ट करना हो, इवन इंडिया में भी हम निफ्टी की टोटल अर्निंग दे सकते हैं। तो क्या सिर्फ अर्निंग के बेसिस पे इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान करना चाहिए, या कुछ और भी हमें देखना चाहिए एज अ रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स?
So earnings are the weight of the company in the end. It is what will anchor it. It is what will hold it. Prices can move up and down, but in the end, longer time, over long periods of time, stock prices will depend on how the earnings move. That is over the longer period of time.
मार्केट आर
All
स्लेव्स
the
ऑफ अर्निंग।
sorry.
मार्केट आर स्लेव्स ऑफ अर्निंग इन द एंड।
Correct. Markets are slaves of earning. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So that is so in the long run, that is what is definitely what we should be focusing on. But when we speak about that also, there are many elements that go into determining or into finding out कि 5 साल के बाद will the earnings be higher, lower, and those are the trickier bits. So it is in looking at the past, it is easy to say, of course, that company was doing very well because the future looks very easy to read from the back. But looking out into the future, understanding why a particular company has certain strengths in their industries is a very different thing. You've got to look at the entire industry, you've got to look at the economy, you've got to look at what the opportunity is, how is that opportunity growing, is it technology based, what is the competition doing. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but undoubtedly in the end, if you have a crystal ball, if you are like able to perfectly look in the future and say that this is what the earnings are going to be, then that is what eventually you'll be able to predict how the stock will do.
एब्सोल्युटली। सर, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर द कंप्लीट डिस्कशन। हमने इंटरनेशनल मार्केट के डाइवर्सिफिकेशन, फंड के एग्जांपल के साथ साथ आपके रियल लाइफ एक्सपीरियंस की जो स्टार्टिंग में आपने दो इंपॉर्टेंट लर्निंग्स दी थी, बहुत सारी चीजें सीखी। टुवर्ड्स द एंड, अभी के मार्केट को ध्यान में रखते हुए कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट जो आप इन्वेस्टर्स को फाइनल टेक अवे के जैसे बोलना चाहते हैं, या फाइनल की पॉइंटर्स देना चाहते हैं?
First thing I would say is that stay true to your portfolio planning. This don't look at the near term volatility for trying to decide your long term future. That is my first and most important message I can say, that if there are this volatility which is there, whatever up and down which happens in the market, maintain your approach towards long term planning, and equities are the asset class which will help um, your long term planning for your finances. That is, it has to be a core part of your portfolio. You have to stay focused and you have to stay disciplined through that entire process, and diversify your portfolio. Those are the two things which I would leave with our listeners today.
Amazing, sir. Sir, thank you so much for coming and discussing everything. Means a lot to us. And thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
थैंक यू, सर। अगर अभी तक आप इस शो में बने हुए हैं तो लाइक करे बिना मत जाइएगा। डिटेल में देख लीजिएगा, आपको सारे के सारे पॉइंटर्स क्लियर हो जाएंगे। और अगर कुछ भी डाउट है रिगार्डिंग फंड, आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में लिंक भी मिल जाएगा। हैप्पी लर्निंग एंड वी विल सी यू वेरी सून। थैंक यू, सर, एंड सी यू वेरी सून।
Thank you.